Here we are, ladies and gentlemen, exploring the Illuminati Occult, Part 33, Occult Wars. There's maybe too many occult in this title.
No.
That's okay, that's okay. I am wearing my, what used to be my 35-degree pin, because today is exploring the Illuminati Occult, Part 33. So in honor of us reaching from the beginning of the year, our 33rd episode, I decided to wear this old pin. So I'm no longer an active Mason, as some of you know, but of course I still have these old pins in the cupboard. So here we are. Welcome everybody. And here we start with a very interesting episode of this show. We will have to thank our sponsors, of course. And so, Christy, our sponsors, who is sponsoring today this broadcast?
Bruce Kodish.
Oh, thank you, Bruce, then. Thank you, Bruce. And if you want to join Bruce and you want to have your name, of course, mentioned, please send us, of course, your donation with the request that you would like to, of course, have your name read in public, because some people like to keep their anonymity, and we know that. But then there is also strange things that occur, like, for example, there is money that appears and then disappears from GoFundMe. Guys, we need absolutely your support. So you can donate through GoFundMe and through Cash App. These are the two modalities which you can use to donate. Christy, you have anything else to add to this?
No. Hi, everyone.
Okay. Well, last week we had quite a few sponsors.
Yeah.
This week instead, naughty. Let's hope that you can sponsor more of our broadcast in the future. In the meantime, we want to also thank an anonymous sponsor also that has helped us a little bit. Sometimes, like I say, there is people who do it publicly, other people who do it anonymously. But we really need your help to be able to continue this broadcast, as we have big bills here with electricity in the middle of the desert, all our studio on and all the rest. But we keep on servicing you, and I hope we do it in our best capacity.
That sounds weird.
What?
Servicing you.
Yeah, no?
Sounds weird.
Sounds
That's
weird.
not a good word.
Okay, we keep on bringing you.
Yeah. Entertaining you?
Well, it's not a question of entertaining. Informing you, and of course we have also dealt with the steps of Volume 9, my latest book. And in fact, if you don't want to help us with a donation, you can help us by purchasing one of our books, even one of Christy's books, but also our latest book, Volume 9 of My Confessions. And it's a book with a lot of positive reviews. In fact, there is actually no negative reviews. Some are invisible reviews, but all the reviews seem to be very positive. So thank you very much for supporting us with the purchase of Volume 9, which is a great book, the first book of my series, which you can read without having read all the others. It's a book that lives, like I said, in a dimension of its own. But at this point, let's discuss the subject of today. So I want to open with a citation from a book that came out when there was these people who started to organize this hexing of Donald J. Trump. Mm-hmm. And then we discovered that the guy in charge of this whole thing was actually a guy who is a Freemason called Michael M. Hughes, like somebody from the York Rite. We have written about him in Zagami.com, but I would like at this point, to start off with, of course, Christy, reading this page, let's say page and a half. Okay. Which defines
page and a half.
Well, no, it's not a long page. It's not a long page. It's a kind of a half a page, because, but it gives us the definition of what of what we are discussing today. But before this, guys, people would say, how comes you haven't put the music, and how comes you didn't start with your dance? Because that's what we do here at the Leo Zagami Show. Welcome, everybody. Saturday, the 16th of September of the year of the Lord, 2023, or September the 16th, depending which side of the world you are.
I don't like this dress.
What are you talking about? What are you talking about? We love Christy's dress today.
I hate it. I'm about to put a jacket on. I'm selling this.
Okay, guys. Can we be a little bit serious here? Okay. Like I said, occult wars are a reality. I mean, occult wars are a phenomena of great antiquity. I mean, I think that in all the old civilizations, magic was actually considered a warfare tool to employ openly against the enemy. And that wasn't even a secret back in the days, at the time of the Roman Empire or the Egyptians, or in ancient Sumeria. But lately we have seen a resurgence, and these witches and warlocks, these modern day witches and warlocks, have started to cast spells, especially during the first term of Trump's presidency. So let's check out what Tucker Carlson said in his own way when he was still at Fox. And welcome everybody to the Leo Zagami Show. Leo and Christy Zagami for you.
President Trump doesn't always do what people expect him to do, or even what his supporters want him to do. Is he being unpredictable, or could there be another cause, perhaps a magical one? Amanda Yates Garcia is the Oracle of Los Angeles. She says she's a witch, tarot card reader, spellcaster, energy healer, intuitive medium, shamanic practitioner, and magical life coach. Last night, she helped cast a so-called binding spell on our president to prevent him from causing harm to others. We've asked many witches to come on this program, but only Amanda Yates Garcia was brave enough to accept our invitation. She joins us tonight from Los Angeles. Amanda, thank you for coming on tonight. I just had a panic communication, the commercial break, with one of my producers, Alex, who said, be nice to her. I don't want to spell on me. So I hope that you'll pull back on your powers and spare our staff. What does this mean exactly, that you cast a binding spell on the president?
Binding spells are like any other spell, so they're a symbolic action used to harness the powers of the imagination and achieve a tangible result eventually. Yeah.
And what was the result that you desired?
Well, I desire that Trump stop harming people that I care about and instituting policies that also harm me or other people that I care about. So my ultimate aim is that we protect the people that we love from having harm done to them. But in the meantime, I think what's really important is that we create a sense of solidarity and empowerment within the people who are participating in the spell, to galvanize them towards action so that they can feel empowered to make the changes that they want to see in the world.
Most people just go ahead and vote, or like buy a T-shirt. Is this legal? Can you run around casting spells on? Are you allowed to cast spells on people? Is there any kind of federal regulation of this?
Well, okay, so symbolic action is something that everybody participates in all the time, right? So you might think, oh, that doesn't really have any meaning. But if that were true, then, for instance, why would people care whether or not people saluted the flag or oh, this is the only action that is necessary to prevent Trump from...
Technical problem, some witchcraft has influenced the communications here. Well, the whole point of showing you this brief clip from Tucker Carlson from a few years ago when he was still at the Fox, was to actually make you understand the reality of this magical warfare, of these occult wars, these ongoing occult wars. Something which is really putting a lot of pressure on people without people even realizing what's really happening to them. Because when you receive an hex, when you receive a curse, you don't really know what's happening to you. Of course, the consequences are very bad. You might in the end realize that, and maybe at that point you will maybe ask somebody to lift that curse or to give you a blessing, an exorcism, all kinds. We think the exorcism is probably the most suitable to cleanse up every negative attack. But let's go to the actual subject of today, the occult wars, which we want to discuss, like I said earlier, by citing in the meantime this Witches and Occultists versus Kings and Nazis from chapter 2 of Magic for the Resistance, which is a book that these anti-Trumpers created, and the guy who created this Xing of Trump ritual, weekly ritual, he wrote this book. But please read this.
Okay. The history of magic being used against oppressive authorities and regimes could fill a series of books. So we will only be able to skim the surface and look at some of the more notable examples. It may be useful first to ask why marginalized and dispossessed people turn to magical means to resist their oppressors. Magic has always been inherently transgressive, socially, sexually, spiritually, and ideologically, making witches, druids, magicians, and cunning folks the bane of and an easy target for political and religious authoritarians. Magic in the hands of peasants subverts the rule of church and state, and witches and shamans living on the outskirts of villages occupy the borderlands between the comforts of civilization and raw nature. Magic is anarchic, wild, and anti-structural. It is no wonder it has always terrified those in power, and it's easy to see why it has so often been employed by the powerless against the dominator culture. But whether it's the 16th century Scottish witch Isabel Gowdy cursing her landlord, enslaved Africans using voodoo and hoodoo to fuel their uprisings in Haiti and the United States, Gerald Gardner and his coven raising a cone of power to keep the Nazis from invading England, the acid-fueled yippies exercising and levitating the Pentagon in the late 1960s, or feminist witches staging an occupation against a nuclear power plant. Magic has always been a tool of resistance. Let us now gaze into our scrying mirror and relive some of the more intriguing instances of resistance magic through the ages.
Okay, thank you very much, Christy, for reading this passage here of this book, Magic for the Resistance, Rituals and Spells for Change, which basically is something that comes out of the anti-Trump movement. And so welcome also to Occult Wars, because today we want to try to go deep into this very unknown world. Now, when we talk about occult wars today, we are not talking about some tabletop skirmish war game. It's not, something that you can play with. It's not, I repeat, a role play game or some screwed up thing like that.
Saw a lot of games.
Yeah, but right. It's neither that, neither is the occult war described by Emmanuel Malinsky and Léon de Ponchin when they said in this book, they described the occult war as the Judeo-Masonic plan to conquer the world. Well, this book by Emmanuel Malinsky and Léon de Ponchin actually was then republished later on in Paris in 1936 with a new introduction by Julius Evola. And Julius Evola emphasized the fact that maybe even if it's not merely a book to, you know, of rebuke an anti-Semitic or anti-Masonic polemic, it's rather a book that emphasizes the metaphysical essence of the revolutionary movement by showing us how this battle of supernatural forces is fought, and these forces that at times take on entire nations, like in the case of Adolf Hitler with Nazism, political parties, races. Now, we need to understand what an occult war is, so I wanted to first of all give this specific description. An occult war is something that is fought between people who definitely have knowledge of the occult at a certain level. Otherwise, you know, there will be no war, there will be no confrontation. I mean, it's a war that is fought usually by people who practice the occult in an equal gruesome way. Mm-hmm. Okay, so when, for example, you mentioned here Gerald Gardner, and Gerald Gardner, of course, everybody knows, is like the father of Wicca. Is basically regarded as the founding father of Gardnerian Wicca, which is basically this witchcraft, neo-pagan religion, which is much actually more recent than what they claim it to be. Gerald Gardner was also a disciple of Aleister Crowley, of course. And so, being a disciple of Aleister Crowley, he was somebody who had knowledge of these forces, but he was also, at one point, he collaborated to the founding of a museum that became a sort of museum of witchcraft, together with another character, another important character in our story today, because we are trying to make you understand how the occult war has been a reality. Cecil Williamson became eventually the co-founder of this very weird museum of witchcraft that was opened up, Museum of Witchcraft and Magic, which was originally opened up in the Isle of Man. And Cecil Williamson was actually a guy who used to work for MI6, for the British intelligence. In 1938, Williamson was actually employed to investigate the Nazi occult interest. And in doing so, he formed a special group within the intelligence world in Great Britain known as the Witchcraft Research Center. And in April 1944, of course, the Witchcraft Research Center was at the center also of the confrontation with Goebbels, as well as with Himmler, with his SS that were widely claiming use of astrology, necromancy, and all that, because they wanted to manipulate them in some way. And at one point, they managed to convince, as you know, during the war, Rudolf Hess that took a plane and arrived in Great Britain, and was obviously arrested. He was one of the most important people. He was basically the leading member of the Nazi Party in Germany, the deputy Führer to Adolf Hitler, and suddenly he takes this plane and he goes, and nobody knows why. And that's part also of this magical war that today I want to try to explain to you. So it's definitely true that Gardner had a, let's say, role within this magical war. There will be various people having a role in this magical war. We're talking about the Second World War. We will be discussing what happened in Great Britain, and also what happened here in America, where voodoo was employed and where there was a group that was specifically created by witches and warlocks here in the US to fight Adolf Hitler. And there is some really gruesome rituals, which I'm going to show you the photos today, from back then, from 1941, when this ritual was conducted here in the United States of America, ended up with Adolf Hitler's head being beheaded, symbolically, of course, in this ritual. Welcome, everybody, to the Leo Zagami. Okay, so here we are. Let's see, with the camera here, we're trying to find the ideal position. Okay, so what we're trying to explain today is occult wars. And like we said, occult wars have been there for a very long time. But first of all, we want to focus on the occult wars of all occult wars, which was the one against Nazi Germany. Because Nazi Germany was clearly employing occult forces. They were completely obsessed with them. Himmler had created the Wewelsburg Castle to be able to direct these forces. The occult wars are a reality. And in the Second World War, like I said, there was Gerald Gardner, who then became the founder of Wicca, who was at the time also in charge of Aleister Crowley's OTO in Great Britain. And so let me show you a document also that proves that, because there is a lot of people say, but that's not true. No, we have the right perspective because we have the documents and we know these documents to be genuine. And this document is a document that basically that Aleister Crowley, the great beast, gave to Gerald Gardner, the founder of the Wicca religion. And here it is, and you can see it's signed Baphomet. Now, the writing in this, I want to call it parchment, this very nice charter, as they call them, that is now in possession, the people who own it are now the US OTO, is basically written on the upper part by Gardner with this very distinctive writing, but it has clearly the sign of Baphomet, of Aleister Crowley, and after this...
he signed Baphomet?
He used to sign Baphomet, the 10th, which used to be the degree that he had for the British Isles of the OTO. Yes, this is... he basically convinced his followers that he was Baphomet. So that the Templars were actually implicit in some way worshipping him back in the days already, and that he was the incarnation of it. I mean, to take on the name of Baphomet was definitely very Crowley, very big ego. But this was Aleister Crowley. And Aleister Crowley will also be involved in this magical war. So there is various people involved in this magical war. We're talking about the Second World War here. But going back to modern day witches, guys, modern day witches are a reality. We have seen them working even in the 60s. There was at one point these hippies that tried to make the Pentagon levitate. I don't know if you remember that. There was this march on the Pentagon, and suddenly there was these people who were probably very high on LSD, very, very high.
Was that in the 60s?
Yes. They tried to levitate the Pentagon. That was also another act of, this time, unsuccessful magical warfare. And it was unsuccessful, but probably was successful in the eyes of the people who were there, because they all said to have been totally out of their brains with a lot of LSD and a lot of other stuff. So probably they saw the Pentagon levitate. It was, with all the acid they dropped. But that, of course, is something that has to do with the 60s, when it was clear at that point that magic was insinuating itself within the political realm of the left. It was becoming part of the political realm of the left. And let's go back a second to Tucker Carlson here.
Mean policies. I think that they're hoping that by doing these symbolic actions that will galvanize people to resist with our hearts, with our full hearts.
So since you're the only witch, I've interviewed a lot of people, but I've never interviewed a witch. Sincere question, is eye of newt an actual ingredient?
Well, I think the real problem is not whether or not eye of newt is an actual ingredient. The real problem is we're about to have some kind of big nuclear extravaganza with North Korea. The real problem is that we're punishing immigrant children. The real problem is that we're
I mean, there are lots of problems, but that's still
to go into deep debt. I don't think the real problem is whether or not we use eye of newt in our
and I'm not suggesting it's a problem, and I'm with you on the student debt, by the way, completely. I don't think Trump did that, but whatever. But it doesn't get to my question, which is eye of newt an actual thing or not?
Eye of newt, isn't that from Shakespeare? So I think he was probably using a little bit of poetic license. Most witches today use whatever we have available to us. For instance, candles and paper.
Does it ever worry you? I mean, by the way, I'm not dismissing what you're saying. I don't think that the only things that exist are the things that we can see. There clearly is a supernatural. I don't understand it, but I wonder if you're ever worried about the consequences of, bluntly, fooling around with things that nobody really understands. I'm sincere. Do you ever worry about that?
You know, a lot of people ask me that, whether or not I worry about the supernatural consequences of what I'm doing. I mean, I trust that what I'm doing is for the greatest good of all concerned, because that's what I hold in my heart. That's what all these witches are doing this for, is because they have the pure intention of creating good in the world, to make a more beautiful, loving, whole, healthy world. And so that's the intention that they're doing this work. So nobody's worried that it's gonna backfire on them, because nobody's doing this spell to cause Trump harm.
So you think, I'm not even talking about Trump, I just mean in general. Oh no, I don't think you are. But you think good intentions will protect you? I don't know. I don't know. It's kind of spooky, but you seem nice, and I'm glad that you came on.
If you need a lesson, Carlson.
No, I don't. Scares me. I appreciate it, though. Thanks for coming on, Oracle Garcia.
Thank you. My pleasure.
So a few years ago, these people decided to do a ritual to ex-Trump in a similar way to how they did with Adolf Hitler. I mean, of course, there is no comparison here, and this is completely outrageous. Binding Trump at midnight on February 24, 2017, this Freemason called Michael M. Hughes, which I've discussed also on leozagami.com in a specific article, and also in my latest book, Volume 9, because he's involved also with the latest rituals to ex Vladimir Putin and to work magically in favor of Ukraine. So there has been also this whole magical war going on in parallel with Ukraine, between Ukraine and Russia. So what happens here and why it's so important for me to discuss, first of all, the Second World War? Because the Second World War was definitely the moment in which this fight was conducted full on between a force that was openly, not so covertly, occult like the Nazis, and one that was more covert about their magical war, which was, of course, Great Britain. The English were much more secretive. Now, immediately following Britain's declaration of war in 1939, Dion Fortune is a very famous author. She was in a group that was part of the Golden Dawn, then moved on and founded their own society for inner light her own order. The unfortunate, of course, comes from the same milieu, if we want, of Aleister Crowley, but it's definitely a very different kind of approach. With the enemy planes rumbling overhead, and I mean, I heard this story since my childhood, because my mother was in London during the Second World War, and at times she was in London, because at times they were also brought out of London in the countryside. But at times she describes the bomb. She described the bombing and how it was. So the unfortunate wanted to do something. She knew that the group couldn't really come together in a physical way, but it could be one, maybe putting together the magical forces. So before physical manifestation can be given to they wanted to develop this energy and manifest the egregor against Adolf Hitler and do it together. And all this, of course, is described also in a book that was later published, which I think is called The Battle Over Britain, of the Unfortunate. So the Unfortunate conducted basically this occult war against Adolf Hitler, and for the first time she opened the doors of her fraternity also to people who were not members, because she said that anyone who wanted to join in and learn the previously secret methods of esoteric mind working was required, could join, because then the fraternity will have more people and more strength. So her fraternity in some way worked through the dark days of the London Blitz. They continued through the weekly letters that she sent to all the members. And the Unfortunate was definitely involved in this occult war. But she was involved with this occult war more and more from 1941 to 1945, to the last phase of the war. While instead, in the initial phase of the war, Gerald Gardner was more involved. And Gerald Gardner was part of what he termed was Operation Cone of Power. Now, according to his own account, it took place in 1940 and in the New Forest. And it was designed to ward off the Nazis from invading Britain by magical means. Gardner claimed that the people involved in this magical working was a group that he called the New Forest Coven. Now, the New Forest Coven apparently was this group of Rosicrucians, a group known as the Rosicrucian Order of Crotona Fellowship. I repeat, I'm talking here about Gerald Gardner, and Gerald Gardner claimed basically that this group, this great circle of people that was erected one night, came together with a great cone of power, a form of magical energy that was raised and sent and addressed against Berlin with the command of you cannot cross the sea, you cannot cross the sea, you cannot come, you cannot come. So by repeating this mantra and by doing this ritual, they were capable, they say, of stopping Hitler from invading. And we know that at one point Adolf Hitler gave up indefinitely the idea of invading Great Britain. However, there was also another operation which is very much known in occult circles as well as in intelligence circles. This operation involves the intelligence and the occult world through a guy also. There is the involvement also of Ian Fleming, and I'm talking about the creator, of course, of James Bond. This operation is Operation Mistletoe. Now, Operation Mistletoe is a very interesting story because it was purposely cooked up by James Bond creator Ian Fleming during his time at Naval Intelligence, and was intended to use also Crowley's occult powers to lure Rudolf Hess to Britain. So part of Operation Mistletoe ended up bringing, from what they claim at least, Rudolf Hess, and this happened basically, but happened how? They had to convince Rudolf Hess. So they invented a ritual, a fake ritual. They concocted, sorry, a ritual in Ashdown Forest. Now, they had to convince friends of people from the Nazi Party close to Rudolf Hess that the Golden Dawn was still alive and kicking, and that they were about to take over Britain and make peace with Germany. I mean, it was a pretty far out story, but the ritual involved a large number of soldiers dressed up in magical robes. They were burning a dummy in a Nazi uniform or a symbolic model airplane, which flew down on a cable stretch from a church tower to a nearby tree. So they were kind of recreating everything, accompanied by considerable pyrotechnics in all this, and of course, ritual chanting. Now, in some versions of the tale, 2 German SS soldiers codenamed Kestrel and Sea Eagle have been somehow duped to attend this ritual, and reported back to Hess that the Order of the Golden Dawn was indeed alive and kicking and waiting to take power, and so he should come over and talk with eventually the king. Now, involved in all this, there was a guy called Cecil Williamson, the guy I told you who basically became an intelligence officer, and also, by the way, after the war, he was very much involved in writing productions for the TV and so on. I mean, this guy is probably one of the reasons why British TV was so weird and full of esoteric and occult content all the time. In any case, Cecil Williamson, who was very knowledgeable of the situation, had been employed, brought into the intelligence by a relative of the unfortunate, a guy called Edward Ted Mudby, a colonel, that I'm going to show you. He employed this guy because he said, we need to investigate what is going on in Germany. So he ended up going in Germany, not this guy. This guy is the guy who employed him, but Williamson basically ended up going in Germany, ended up basically investigating on behalf of the English MI6 the occult activities that were going on in Germany. So there is definitely a lot of interesting things that go on, but in Operation Mistletoe, the first thing was to conduct this ritual in Ashdown Forest that needed to look the more realistic possible. And once they will see all that, they will immediately go and report it to. So one of the most important people in this scheme was called Karl Burkhardt, and he was the former governor of Danzig and the head of the Swiss-based International Red Cross. And basically they had meetings also with various people that were all invited, and of course led by the Duke of Hamilton. And we know what happens with Rudolf Hess takes the plane and ends up basically in England. He will get eventually arrested, but they really convinced him that there was something big going on. And apparently Ian Fleming had also asked MI5 is an internal service, MI6 is the external, to employ also Aleister Crowley to interview Rudolf Hess once he will arrive to England. Let's not forget that Rudolf Hess was a guy that was very close to Adolf Hitler, also during his arrest, when he wrote Mein Kampf. he kind of like, they were incarcerated both in Landsberg prison, and he was also the guy who gave a lot of occult knowledge to Adolf Hitler. He was also a member of the Thule Gesellschaft, the branch of the German Orden, which was led by Rudolf von Sembotendorf, which we discussed when we discussed the occult Nazism, esoteric Nazism. You can go back always in the episodes that we have done previously, so you can maybe know more. In this occult war, like when it comes down to the contemporary occult war, the one between Ukraine and Russia, I would suggest that people go and read volume 9, because there you can find this whole thing. But let's go back to the Deputy Führer. Deputy Führer was basically duped in believing that both Freemasonry, English Freemasonry, and the British Crown were involved with this Golden Dawn in a magical occult takeover of Britain that will eventually sign the peace with Adolf Hitler. It never happened. Rudolf Hess was arrested, and he faced charges after the war as a war criminal, and he was transported to Nuremberg in October 1945, and he will eventually, as we all know, die in prison, in the Spandau prison, where he was for many years, and they had to completely destroy Spandau prison to not make it into a Nazi shrine after he was he died. And is actual recently, not so long ago actually, they also had the S grave, which was in Wunsiedel, became a destination for the neo-Nazis. So every August there will be like a parade there. And to stop such pilgrimage, the parish council decided not to allow an extension on the grave when the lease expired in 2011. At that point, they cremated the body, they destroyed the grave, the whole thing. And now the neo-Nazis can't go. And so there was also a myth that the Spandau prison was not actually Rudolf Hess, and this myth was then disapproved in 2019. But in any case, going back to what happened magically during the Second World War, there is some very interesting elements here that we find. I mean, here we have people really entrenched in satanic worship, working with the British intelligence, people like, for example, Evan Frederick Morgan, the second Viscount Redger. Now, this guy was mentioned, Crowley saw him as the biggest initiate of all time. This guy was one probably of the most depraved, eccentric British aristocrats of all kinds, as usual. They seem to have, and when they have too much, and he was very rich, one of the richest aristocrats in England. Well, this guy had a room of black magic, and when Aleister Crowley saw it, he was like, oh, wow.
He got impressed?
Aleister Crowley was impressed, but Aleister Crowley in turn nominated him. Actually, I'm going to tell you how he called them. This was an article, for example, of June 2013, over 10 years ago. The devil worshipping Viscount, and his very
naughty party trick with a parrot.
I don't know what he did with a parrot.
I thought I read that on your notes.
Yes, well, the guy was also very much into bisexuality, and actually he was left by both wives because he didn't really have sex with them. He didn't consume even the marriage with the second wife, who was consummated the marriage with the second wife, who was a Russian princess, because he was very much promiscuous homosexual. So even though he married an English actress and a Russian princess, he was still a promiscuous homosexual. And he was a black magician. Like I said, his room, black magical room, and his friendship with Crowley explain really what kind of guy. But this guy was very much involved in the magical war at that time, together with all these various people. And amongst these figures, there is also another. I mean, now the main figures of this magical war. The Viscount Tredegar was definitely very much a Satanist. And just to show you what Crowley said about him, because otherwise, and on top of this guy was a Catholic, a Knight of Malta, and he served even the Pope. So this is basically linking the Vatican, Aleister Crowley, and the English nobility in one guy. How can you be more demented?
No.
I don't know. I mean, you can't be more demented.
You should be like...
Okay, so here. In his parties, the people who used to hang there and make this demented ritual, one of the main people featured there at the party was Aldous Huxley, by the way. He was very much
that
present.
guy?
Yes, so, I mean, he was a Knight of Honor and Devotion of the Sovereign Military Order of Malta. He was a Knight of Justice of the Order of St. George. He was a Knight of Justice of the Order of St. John of Jerusalem. He was a commander of the Holy Sepulchre, which we know is the most important order with star.
What does that mean?
That means like you are like the top of the Vatican, you know, it's like you have various...
is that one? No.
Yeah, it's the one with that headquarters where we went.
Huh.
Despite his known homosexuality, he married twice. Louis Sinastert, an actress and daughter of Humphrey Napier, Baron, whatever, and then Princess Olga Sergeyevna Dolgorsky, daughter of General Prince Sergei Alessandrovsky, whatever. And, you know, just let me see because I can't read it back. But the thing that I wanted to show you, apart from all this, was here, let me show. An accomplished occultist, he was hailed by Aleister Crowley as adept of adepts.
Mm-hmm.
So not any kind of adept, but the adept of adepts. He used to have also a particularity. He used to celebrate the most demented necromancy ritual in cemeteries, and he did a necromantic ritual in the cemetery of the Anglican Church in Rome.
What did he do?
I mean, the guy was, I mean, definitely one of the most demented and far out characters that I could ever encounter during my studies. Viscount Tredegar was definitely, I mean, he had his wild parties with Aldous Huxley and H.G. Wells, the guy who invented the New World Order. So what more do you want here?
What kind of party was this?
Okay, so you have Aldous Huxley, who will become the head of MK Ultra once he moves from England into America, and he was working with the Tavistock Institute. He was initiated by Crowley, Aldous Huxley, and you can read all about them in Volume 8 of my Confessions.
What a bunch of mind controllers.
Yeah, they were fixated on it. Lord Tredegar also visited he was, and you know who was a special guest at the Tredegar estate?
Who?
Who you think? The German Nazis and Rudolf.
The German Nazis,
of course, and Rudolf Hess. Now, Queen Mary was the grandmother of the Queen, not the mother of the Queen Mother, no, but from the fathers. The Queen Mary, so the grandmother from his father's side, from her father's side, of Elizabeth II, okay, used to call Lord Tredegar my favorite bohemian. Now, one of his dramatic events, during one of his more unusual and notorious parties, he had as a guest Rudolf Hess himself. That's why Rudolf Hess was a guy who was German, but he was born in Egypt. He was raised basically in British occupied territory. So he was the only one of the whole Nazi establishment to actually have a positive view of the Brits, because he was grown up by the Brits and then he became the deputy Führer. So Rudolf Hess had a particular kind of story. In 2012, the house that basically used to be the house of the Tredegar, because he didn't have any descendants, he was homosexual, so he didn't have any descendants. The whole estate now is being taken over in 2012 by the National Trust. They use the money from the weekly lottery, and they bought the estate, and they opened it to the public in 2012. So if you want to go and see this very much occult character, who apparently had also the most amazing black magic room, which Crowley himself
Ooh, I wouldn't go in there.
Now, Tredegar seems to have been fond of graveyards for rituals. Like I said, he used the one, even in Rome, the one of the Anglican Church, which my mother knows. She spends with the guy, the wife of the prisoner. But in any case,
that lady.
I would like to ask my mother what she thinks about it. She was like, "Oh, darling." I think probably
Never mind.
Well, mind. Lord Tredegar belonged to an occult secret society in London called the Black Circle. Now, this Black Circle, guys, is not really well known by anyone outside of certain circles within the aristocrats. But one day, I was working in a club, and I started talking with this lady who used to do the cleaning of the place. She was like a simple woman, of a certain age, who was doing the cleaning in the clubs and stuff, and then he does other little works and stuff. And she said, and I, we started talking about things, and at one point she said to me, well, regarding the occult, because she saw I had a pin, one of my orders, I don't know what. It was a Masonic pin or else. But she said, I was the guest of this lord, and they were doing the Black Circle that evening.
What's that?
And what she told me about that meeting, she was serving as an like a maid in this film,
like a hostess.
And just as a maid. She was involved in gathering them. And she said that it was completely outrageous what they were doing in this. So they usually they wear a hooded. Well, it was scary.
What did they do? We want to know.
They were all wearing a hooded black robe.
Okay.
They were all basically in a black circle kind of scenario where she had to bring and gather the food around in this kind of scenario. I mean, it was pretty spooky.
And did they kill something in front of her? Do they do that?
It was a long time ago. Some things I remember of this story, some things it was so long ago, guys. It was 1999.
We always think somebody killed, sacrificed.
Something really dark happened because she was really scared to even tell me more about this whole thing. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to know more. And so me and a guy who actually was in the OTO started to ask her questions, I remember this guy was Rob Curley, who then became the founder of the Albion OTO and then moved on to Michael Staley's Typhonian order. So, in any case, Lord Tredegar belonged to this occult secret society, the Black Circle. Now, in it, the aristocrats were calling each other the Black Monks. We know that in England there is Blackfriars Bridge in London, and that was the place where Calvi from the Lodge P2 was hung upside down and found dead.
Oh, yeah.
So it's very interesting, this thing about the Black Monk. And was even painted in a hooded black robe. All the members were it was like for the ceremonies, and they owned various relics of saints. Doesn't that sound familiar? The relics of saint thing that the Syrians are always obsessed with, like in the case of Padre Pio.
Yeah.
So he owned several relics of saints, reflecting his Catholic background. Had the skeleton of a local Welsh witch set up in his hallway to greet his guests, and confided in Crowley that his family was descended from King Arthur. Now, the legendary city of CANALE was supposed to have been a nearby Roman site of Caerleon. Crowley even described his lordship as the rightful heir to Excalibur. This is what Alistair Crowley said about this guy. Yeah. So just so, because otherwise, you know, maybe people. We are discussing.
We're not impressed.
What's that?
Just kidding.
No. Well, I mean, it is an interesting story. Definitely, this guy, the devil worshipping Viscount, because then he was friend. There was a team of people. And together with him, there was another guy who would become one of the main protagonists of James Bond, Mr. M.
Oh, really?
Mr. M. So who was the real Mr. M? He was another homosexual, perverted guy. Because every time you go into these black occult, black magical situations in England, you always find these people very, can I say it? Very anal.
Anal.
Yeah, I remember one day, I was at the library of the Arrogant Lodge of England. I always like to say this story, probably I said it other times, but there was this guy, I asked him, sorry, can I have a copy of Arcane Schools of John Yarker? And he arrived there and he was walking like this. He looked literally like he had a stick up his ass.
That's nice.
Like this. Please.
He was just walking straight.
Whatever. Okay, so the other guy who was working with the Viscount, very naughty guy with the party parrot, probably I don't know what he did with the party parrot. With the what did he do? Very naughty
pirate trick. What is this very naughty trick?
What is this very naughty trick? We want to know it. Is it something like Richard Gere?
No, just stop it. That never happened anyway.
No, that never happened.
That was a bad rumor.
Well, that was a bad rumor. That was definitely a bad rumor. It wasn't true. But this is true. This is true because the Viscount used to have this party trick with the parrot. You're going to leave it there. Can't go into detail. Can't be too...
You can't do anything with a parrot.
Okay. Okay. Apart from the guy here, the devil worshipping Viscount, we had Mr. M, Maxwell Knight. Now, Maxwell Knight, guys, is basically, his full name was Charles Henry Maxwell Knight. He was British spy master in the real sense of the word. It wasn't a joke. In the British intelligence, he is the model for the James Bond character M. Now, he played major roles in surveillance of an early British fascist party as well as the main communist party. M is the code name held by a number of fictional characters in Ian Fleming's James Bond and film series. M is basically a very interesting character that people who, of course, have watched the films of James Bond know very well. But let's see the real M, who he was. Okay, here we are, and get ready to be a little bit shocked. But that's how it is. Okay. Remember, guys, I'm half English, so I know these people very well in the sense that it's familiar kind of thing, especially because I attended their lodges and all the rest, so I know how they are. But,
really?
Well, but they are really totally out of it. Dark Secret Life of the Original M, Spy Master who inspired 007. Let me these people have, this is a one. They probably don't like me to expose too much, so I want to do it in a way that...
what do you mean?
Well, I want to do it in a way that works out here with this machine of mine, to make you see the articles in real time. Here we are. Welcome to the Leo Zagami Show. In the meantime, please run. Where do you have to run? No, run to the GoFundMe and donate us something. That's where you have to run, guys. I mean, today our only sponsor is Bruce Kodesh, which we thank. But for next week, we need more sponsors. I mean, guys, can't leave it only on one guy to sponsor the whole broadcast. So, run.
What?
I don't know, run.
Run where? Okay.
Run and donate. Maybe. Okay.
Red room.
Okay. Let's go to what somebody called the British stick master. Somebody will have called it the British anal master. But the English, you see, the problem with the English is that they have public schools or private schools that are these colleges for only boys, no? And they come out of it always a little bit with their with some conflicts in their anus. That's it.
Well, I don't see that.
It's a bit like the mentality, the way their upbringing, very stiff, very strict guys. I'm half English, and of course, as you know, I come from the British aristocracy, but I hate every every moment of it.
Ooh, you said the F word.
I hate every moment of it. I remember a time in which my grandfather had to make me a whole course on how you had to eat and putting all the various spoons on the table and all the thing with his butler and the whole thing. It was so, make me so angry. I was like, just these people are so stuck up. Whatever. So, Dark Secret Life of the Original M. Spy Master who spied 007's boss was a closet gay, another one, like the Viscount, that married 3 women he never slept with, so another guy who never sleeps with his women. So these people married just to marry, before reinventing himself as a children presenter called Uncle Max.
That happened to Marie Antoinette.
What?
Well, her husband never really wanted her at all.
No, probably the husband was another guy from the Goronzon Club here. So Maxwell Knight spoke already. Now, the thing is, this guy, Uncle Max, Alistair Crowley, the Viscount, all these people were working in this situation of occult war. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So what happens here is that, I mean, this was an occult war that was played both at the geopolitical level as well as a magical level. And these people were all very high up. I mean, here we have the guy who is in charge of espionage, the guy, Mr. M, the boss of James Bond, who is in charge. And then you have the Viscount with his parrot doing some dirty trick, who is also doing rituals in the middle of the cemeteries. And these people are all sick. They're all sick. They're all depraved. I mean,
that's
totally out of
the
it.
White House right now, really.
Huh?
That's the White House right now. I think
Yeah,
they do all those things.
And in fact, you see, you have to understand, these people are really sick. Look at, for example, apart from binding Trump, and binding Trump.
How rude. That is so mean.
That's really mean, huh?
That's so mean. And it's cheating and it's terrible, but whatever.
But they have
that always comes back to the person, so.
Yeah, absolutely. But also they have all kind of ritual. Dance of Pan, LGBTQ protection ritual. Then we have, let me show some other far out. Okay, this one, guys. Okay, because, I mean, here we're discussing occult wars, and the left is really deep into black magic. Black Lives Matter do their own ritual. Black Lives Matter, spell for justice for a victim of a police action. So basically, this is a spell for justice in what has become, and I'm quoting, of course, this book, an increasingly common situation with an African American is the victim of an unjust extrajudicial killing by a police officer. I watched as my home city, Baltimore, was torn asunder after the death of Freddie Gray in the back, blah, blah, blah. None of the officers were charged with the crime. So I'm tired of innocent black men, women, and children dying without any consequence. And for that reason, he does a magical ritual. And he basically described the components. The components for this magical ritual for the Black Lives Matter is a black candle, an Aesop oil or power oil, pin or nail to inscribe candle, the Justice Tarot card. You will need to give up this card for the spell, so if you can't afford to buy a new deck, use a printout instead. Images of slain African American activists, MLK, Medgar Evers, Fred, Malcolm X, etc. Images of the police officer or small square of paper with their name written on it. Indeed, this is like really giving the Xing rituals of how you're doing. I find it extremely disturbing. Yeah. And it's I don't know.
They're using demons to harm people. They're asking demons to harm people.
But that is what they do. That is what they do. I mean,
so then the demons are going to want some payback after. So they're going to have to do something really bad.
There is a book here about occult warfare, which I suggest we have a look at. Magical Attack. Magical Attack is by a modern occultist. And let me show it to our viewers here. Silence mind and crush your enemies with the art of the occult warfare.
I wouldn't do that.
And it says basically you can use demons to
people are nuts.
They are absolutely crazy. I mean, these people are, and when you go and purchase this book online, if you go and purchase this book online, the way they present it is absolutely outrageous. I mean,
somebody could make this right in their own head, though, you know, and that's how they do it. They make it all right. They, you know, they work it out in their own head, so they make it right, but it's not.
Look at how this book is presented on Amazon, just so you have a look at it and you have an idea of how they present. Because they openly say we use demons to cast spells and curses and stuff, and this is a typical representative of these libtards. Just a second. No, it's not this. No, this is the of course the book, but I wanted to show the. Sorry guys, you know my technical means here are not very sophisticated, and unfortunately that's how it is. Okay, so when you go on the presentation of this book on Amazon, it's quite expensive and pricey, by the way. It's not a cheap book. That came out in 2015. It says, let magic set you free from the people who bring you down. Difficulty people.
Want me to read it? Yeah. Let magic with a K set you free from the people who bring you down. Difficult people make life unbearable. Whether you're dealing with a cruel boss, a bully, or a gossip, you need freedom and peace. With the dark magic in this book, you can silence, bind, and curse the people that have made you unhappy. People are jealous, petty, and cruel, and their mean-spirited actions are holding you back. Use magic to be untouched by the heartless. They are really wicked. Go. The eldest member of the Gallery of Magic, Gordon Winterfield, has a lifetime experience dealing with troublesome people. He says you can turn the other cheek, but why should you? It is your divine right to remove people who get in your way of your true will. Using angels and demons, Magic Attack gives you a fast, safe.
Using angels and demons.
There's no angel in that. That's a lie.
Yes.
Safe way to take control of those who try to run your life. Winterfield goes on to say...
let's cut it here.
Without any complicated ceremonies, Winterfield has developed a magical system that gets your commands to the demons without any danger to yourself.
Yeah, sure.
Whatever.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, sure.
Reach to willpower that keeps you safe. Reach to find enemies, foil plans, and send
magic to silence gossip and lies.
Powerful binding ritual to stop an enemy from causing harm. I mean, there is all kinds.
That's so stupid.
I know these people are completely out of it, but that's why they have all these idiotic rituals. That there is even a ritual against the NRA against the National Rifle Association. Really? Also. Yeah. They've been really working these leftists, and so it's really insane, man, insane. There is also the hands-off laws of Ecate invocation for reproductive rights.
Is that for abortion?
Yes, for this is a spell for the protection of women reproductive rights. It can also be done for protection of women, health clinics, and their doctors and healthcare workers who work on the abortions. Perform this ritual during your period if you have one. in response to anti-choice votes of initiatives to protect clinic under siege or during the full moon, do this ritual at night, never in the daytime, they say in this ritual. And
I don't know.
it says, my blood, my life, my power.
Why are people doing this stuff?
It's
terrible. I feel sorry for people who do this.
There is also another ritual, guys. And this, we are basically witnessing an invasion at the border. Here, just yesterday in San Diego, they let just people come in and, say, no problem. You can go wherever you want. They didn't even, they just invite them in America. Well, there is a no borders or one family invocation to Hermes, a spell to protect immigrants and refugees, especially those fleeing harm, and to encourage global fellowship via the invocation of Hermes. I mean, of course, there is also a Me Too movement, one, and there is also an ex-NRA ritual. These people are all Satanists. Remember, guys, these people are all Satanists. Watch here. I'm going to show you the images of when these witches, these modern day witches, they went and casted a spell in front of Trump Tower a few years ago. Check this out. And welcome to the Leo Zagami Show with Leo and Christy, Saturday, the 16th of September, 2023.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
What we don't want is our faces on camera.
Oh my God, not the other. She stuff.
Yes. Hear me, oh spirits.
Oh, water.
What I hope for is that we collectively have the capacity with our bodies, with our spirits, with our minds to overcome what it is we've been given. So mote it be! So mote it be! So mote it be!
Cheese.
Very nasty. You're very nasty. Your intentions are nasty.
My intentions are not nasty. What's nasty is ripping mothers out of the arms of their children because they don't have paper.
It really has no place in American politics, in American culture, and certainly not in democracy. And the idea of trying to override through magical means the will of the President of the United States, I think is very sick.
It's very sick. It's very sick.
There's
Absolutely.
nothing
Absolutely.
wrong with calling out to the universe a request that humans do no harm. That just seems like what we should all be doing every night at midnight.
Not being able to make it, like I'm gonna get here at like 10.
Wow. And you remember when there was Justice Kavanaugh? Okay.
Yes.
That was
actually the thumbnail for this show. I was making the thumbnail. That's actually the ritual that they did.
Yeah. There was this,
They really went after him.
Yeah,
too.
they came together in a bookstore in Brooklyn to put an X on Justice Kavanaugh.
Brooklyn. How
Yeah.
could you do that in Brooklyn?
I know it's crazy.
It's my town.
I know. It is.
It is.
Oh, look at that. We can't hear them. We can't hear them. There it is. Give yourselves a round of applause. Okay. Listen, we are nothing if not fucking resourceful and resilient. So, all right. I am going to probably just chill right here. Live stream? Yes. Please, sir.
You just said no flash.
All right, everybody, 1, 2, 3,
That's going to be specific about
We open this space in order to accomplish that which we have set out, and we welcome in all of the ones who have heard our call, the deities and goddesses, ancestors and spirits, angels and saints, work and rain down divine retribution on the heads of every one of these evil men and all who would aid them. Foster within us bravery and clothe us in your armor as we face an enemy who seems insurmountable. Shrouded in hidden ones, cloak us in your mysteries, give us the protection of the night and the blessings of our mother the moon. Shield us from the snares and arrows of those who would have our blood.
Whatever. What do you think, Christy, of these witches?
Well, I mean, they're not praying to God right there. So.
Absolutely. So here we are discussing, of course, magical warfare. We have seen how evil these people are, how they want to crush us using the occult, and how they are also at the moment trying it to do with Donald J. Trump, comparing him even to Adolf Hitler when there is no comparison. I mean, the occult war that went on at the time of Adolf Hitler was something completely different that had some serious justifications. I mean, you were dealing with a monster who was sending people into the concentration camps. I mean, how can these people just, I mean, I don't understand. It's completely insane. Welcome to the Leo Zagami show, and we're going through, of course, this incredible story. Today we started talking about the Second World War, because we think the Second World War can then be, you know, the base for elaborate and all the rest. I mean, of course, if we had to talk about occult warfare, John Dee defended England from the Armada. He was the magician of Elizabeth I. He was the one who conjured the entities to defend Great Britain. And actually, Gerald Gardner, when he witnessed these rituals that they were doing against Hitler, he said that some of those witches, their ancestors had done rituals to defend against Napoleon, against other figures that wanted to have, that had hostile intentions against England. So he was claiming that this was a much older tradition. Let's not forget, though, that Gerald Gardner comes in with all the BS that Margaret Murray pushed with the witch cult hypothesis, that the witches and black magic was simply a continuation of old pagan rituals already practiced in Great Britain, and that they had nothing anti-Christian. That's not true. That's completely not true, of course. But that was the hypothesis created by Margaret Murray that also Gerald Gardner was in some way following. We saw here in most recent times, each month, thousands of witches casting a spell against Donald J. Trump, calling themselves the magical resistance. But at the same time, we also saw other interesting things during the Second World War, which I like to report to you before maybe moving on. William Seabrook. Now, we said that there was an occult war against Hitler from England. And now let's go here in America, where William Seabrook, who was this American writer, globe-trotting adventurer, he was described this way, an occultist, was contacted in 1941 by a coven of amateur witches in Washington, asking for instructions on how to do doll magic against Hitler. The representative, Richard W. Tupper, told Seabrook that it would help pass the evenings and it would help comfort people in a way. Exing Hitler would be of comfort for thousands. You know, I mean, it was during the war, people were desperate. So Seabrook was actually delighted with the idea. The interesting thing is that Seabrook will end up dead in 1945, the same year Adolf Hitler allegedly died. And so Seabrook was delighted with the idea that because he had plenty of experience with puppets, wax images in pre-war France, London, and New York. And also there was a guy, there was Reader Digest. People used to read a lot, Reader's Digest. No? And a guy wrote a letter to Seabrook, William Seabrook, and said that he should collaborate with this Catherine Durham. Catherine Durham was a voodoo priestess, and that her knowledge of jungle magic will help him, even if Seabrook had himself already quite a lot of knowledge also in voodoo and other things. He added that the Walt Disney Corporation, in this article, this letter was published in the Digest, Walt Disney should help the effort, and that the Walt Disney Corporation and the International Ladies Garment Workers Union could design, produce, and sell all the dolls of Adolf Hitler during the war so they could hex them and sell them. So Disney could also release a short film or a cartoon of hexing Hitler so people could copy it. I mean, it was really sick, but Disney Studio never replied to that. I mean, probably if they sent the same letter today in 2023, they will receive an award from Walt Disney, and they will definitely, I mean, actually, if you just put on normal cartoon of Walt Disney, I just wrote an article that I published when it was yesterday or the day before about the elementals of Paracelsus that are now being normalized by Walt Disney through a cartoon. So I will advise you to go and check this article on leozagami.com. Let me show it to you. Let me show you this article. Here we are. Sorry, guys. Here we are, hopefully. So, yes. So, if you want to know more about what I'm discussing now regarding this elemental thing, it's very interesting, this article that I wrote. You can find it here on leozagami.com. It's my latest article. Check it out. And there is also other interesting articles this week that definitely people will enjoy on leozagami.com. Purchase also my latest book, Volume 9 of my Confessions, where I talk about also the magical war between Ukraine and Russia. I talk about also it's Michael Hughes that after organizing the hexing of Trump has organized also the hexing of Vladimir Putin, but also the work of the Knights of Chaos, of the Illuminati of Thanatos against Vladimir Putin, and other interesting things regarding also Freemasonry and what is happening in Russia. So all that you can find in Volume 9 of my Confessions, which is a great book, guys. It's a great book. It's a great book.
It's a great book.
Oh, great book. Get it, and get it. Not because I want to be a used car salesman with my own book, but this book, guys, no, but this guy is important. This book is important. I really think that people will get something out of it. So, just dismissing this book might be very stupid until you know what this book is about. And read also the reviews on Amazon, and you will understand the importance of this book. So, moving further, I want to go and show you what happened, because at one point this black magic hexing party to kill Adolf Hitler with voodoo was born in 1941, and they did this ritual, and we have the photos. So let's go and check what happened in America.
They want demons. I mean, like, Hitler's working with demons, and then they're working with demons to kill Hitler's demons. It's like demon battle.
I know. That is Occult Wars. That's why it's called Occult Wars,
Yeah.
So
Get it.
Absolutely. Let me here. Just a second.
Because nobody fights God. God's number one, and there is no fight.
Absolutely.
There isn't.
Okay, just a second here, because, of course, guys, I would like to show you these images, and hopefully we will manage. Here we are. Now, 1941, hexing Adolf Hitler with a ritual. I told you the background of this story, how it came together, who advised it, and then there was, of course, the ritual, which was reported for maximum exposure by Times Magazine, by Life Magazine. So there was the photos that we can now see. thanks to the report that was conducted by Life magazine. Because just like in the case of the ritual against Donald Trump, there was a lot of media involved because there was the interest of making Hitler know that this ritual was taking place. So here we have the images from the ritual. Okay, so let's go. William Seabrook was the guy, by the way, he was also a friend of Aleister Crowley, who in 1940 had published a fairly popular book called Witchcraft is Power in the World Today. And he is the one who inspired this ritual that took place in the Maryland woods in 1941. You can see all the people going there.
Gosh, it looks so civilized.
And this is the ritual. William Seabrook just a rented West Indian robe worn in life's words, dark, handsome Florence Versailles, and show her how to. I think it was also done in a way that was very spectacular. There was a rhythm. William Seabrook demonstrated the proper tom-tom rhythm for a legitimate hex, while Florence Versailles. And so there was like, keep the beat in a certain way. There was the image of the Nazi puppet. The curse at Hitler, you see the effigy of Adolf Hitler. Here they are Xing him, and then eventually they will cut his head at the end of the ritual. See?
Wow.
Here, there were all this as she jabs an effigy of Hitler, Xer Ruth David intones, "Burn Hitler eyes, keep them open night and day, kill his rest." A small Hitler doll is confronted with a chicken bone. Oh, Battle of the Chicken Bone and Adolf Hitler. According to William Seabrook, a symbol of famine. Well, yeah, also a symbol of famine after you went to Kentucky Fried Chicken. Okay, or chicken fillet. Okay, here we have. Now, we have also the leopard kind of dress. Recently, we saw a Catholic bishop celebrating Mass wearing a leopard skin. I don't know if I can find it. Vatican priest wearing a leopard skin. I know
leopard.
If I find it, guys, I will show it to you. I don't have it here, but maybe the next episode we will definitely show it. Okay. This is a fully mounted, the cursed Hitler image lies amid ceremonial debris. So this is the whole ritual. Decapitation terminates the brief lifespan of Adolf Hitler's dummy. This was the moment in which they take, but this was important. It was 1941. Hitler is buried in deep pine woods to be devoured by worms, wrote Life. This image in the article, after burial, exes were exhausted by compounded impact of drums, ritual and emotion and booze. Don't forget the booze.
I'm sure.
There was a lot of booze. This article, of course... Are
they talking about Biden there? The early signs of dementia.
Yeah, you should. No, there's no need to ex-Biden. He's just already demented. You don't need to ex-Biden. He's already completely gone. Okay. So they can do all their magical resistance, but you can't resuscitate the dead. Maybe they can create a zombie, but that will be zombie Biden, I guess. Zombie Biden. I mean, unfortunately, that's how it is. Huh? Okay, so then we have what I've described an invisible master. Sorry, guys. Invisible Master, and also you can find on Lucifer Rising, which is a publication by a satanic priest, Gavin Badley, who is also a journalist, the moment in which Michael Aquino, who died 3 years ago, was the founder of the Temple of Set, did in Wewelsburg Castle, when he basically took on. You want to read it? Okay, here. Here, 1984, undeniably, 1984.
Undeniably, in 1984, Aquino, like Nicholas Schreck, made a visit to the SS castle at Wewelsburg, conducting a rite in the notorious Hall of the Dead. The reality of this chamber rushed in on me, he later wrote. This is no Hollywood set, no ordinary room painted and decorated to titillate the senses. 1,235 inmates of the Niederhagen concentration camp died during the construction of Evelsburg for the SS. If the Marble Hall and the Walhalla were memorials to a certain unique quality of mankind, they also serve as grisly reminders of the penalty mankind pays for that quality. Clearly, Aquino's pilgrimage to Evelsburg was not an enthusiastic embrace of as enthusiastic an embrace of the Third Reich as Schreck's.
By the way, Aquino was accompanied, like explaining Invisible Master, by I think 10 other intelligence officers. The whole thing was conducted. They went 2 times. They conducted the rituals at the expense of the taxpayer because they were on duty at that time. They were actually on duty in Europe, all these military intelligence officers that followed Michael Aquino. But that was part of the occult warfare.
There is wait, can you get rid of that person?
To
block.
Who?
There's a troll. Just block him. Block that.
Who?
Down right there.
Wow, so there is somebody who is insulting Christ. We will not.
I was wondering when the Satanists would come in here.
Well, but we will not accept, of course, here in the chat any blasphemy against Christ or God. So, what can we do? We did it.
It all goes back to you.
Yeah. So, occult wars have been around since the beginning of time. We can say that a more organized form of occult war took place in the Second World War. We saw it both in America just now, but also in England. And behind both the rituals in America and the ones that were conducted in England, there was always lurking behind the corner the figure of Aleister Crowley. Aleister Crowley, who was an intelligence operative. In fact, in this book of Richard B. Spence, is called Secret Agent 666. And when it comes down to the characters that we have met today, definitely a very weird array of characters. Now, Trump supporters are accused also of having used some form of magic. Memes of Pepe the Frog as some kind of magical way of fighting the occult war. Let's see what Vice says in this article. Meme the Frog. How is it? Pepe the Frog.
Pepe the Frog.
Pepe the Frog. Pepe the Frog here. Okay, let's see if we can. Trump occult online supporters. Let's see if we can get this article to appear on the screen. It's never too late for the screen. Hopefully. Come on. Come on. We have to, I mean, here, guys, I don't know, but sometimes strange things happen with this computer. It's kind of occult. Now it appears. Okay. Okay. Appear. It's like conjuring something here with this computer. Oh. Okay. So, Trump occult online supporters believe meme magic got him elected.
Meme magic.
Got him elected. According to members of this internet tribe, which largely identifies with so-called alt-right white nationalists, Donald Trump will become the 44th president thanks to their viral efforts with the cartoon frog.
Oh, whatever.
This was an article that was published right there, November 2016. They were about to discover the left will discover that their magic wasn't so powerful to keep Trump out of office. Now, when it comes to 2024, we should definitely prepare to fight against this enemy, which is also employing occult means. So keep Trump in your prayers. Keep everybody who is fighting the just war to get back into the White House and save America. It's
they are just so bothered by us, aren't they?
No, but it's no problem. It's normal. We always have people that can infiltrate the chats, stroll, and that means that we're very popular. And that, of course, if they are insulting God, then it means that we are touching on their weakness. You see, they are weak, very weak.
Really,
and unfortunately, they're trying to normalize the occult for kids. They're trying to manifest Satan as a positive force in society, Lucifer. We need to stop all this. I mean, when we saw this kind of scenes, we should have understood, even if most people, maybe don't understand the full extent of what this means, but this kind of events, like the Xing of Trump, the binding of Justin Kavanaugh, and all these other things, means that these people are in league with the devil, and the devil is their lord, their master. The Democrats, that's how we need to call it, the Democrats. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I hope you enjoyed Exploring the Illuminati Occult Part 33. Yeah, I hope you all learned something new today. Remember that there is going to be always evil forces, but we are much stronger. We are much stronger, guys. So here we are, ready to say bye-bye to you. And of course, we do it in style with our sound, Dance Macabre.
Bye, everyone. Have a nice weekend.
Have a nice weekend. And like we said, purchase our books or donate to keep on supporting your favorite show, the Leo Zagami Show with Leo and Christy Zagami, every Saturday at 5 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern. Here we go.
Bye. God is love. God is everything. Put God in your heart. God loves you.
Take care, guys. God bless you all.
God
Take
bless
care
you.
and see you next week with Christy.
And we bless the bad ones too.
Yes, absolutely. Take care, all of you. And of course, keep on tuning in through Facebook, YouTube, and Pando Video. Bye-bye. Palm Springs, California. That's all and a little bit